welcome back to my channel. I am now a grad student. I don't live in the same place anymore, and I actually live in a box. And this is the only setup I could do that has good lighting and you can see the full body of me. So I am going to film my favorite books of the year video today, and I know I'm late because it's the end of January. And I should have filmed this when I was home in Ohio with my family, but I didn't because I was procrastinating and learning Python instead. So now I am going to talk about my favorite books. I have 10 favorites and 5 honorable mentions, but from the 10 favorites, there's only 5 that I truly love, and the rest are just like pretty good, but not 5 stars. The girls that get it, and the girls that don't. So let's start with the honorable mentions. The first book I wanted to talk about is called Girls, 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 like the Fletcher song. Fletcher is canceled in this household. This book is about a girl and her best friend who she also likes romantically, and they graduate high school in their homophobic town in the East Coast, and they decide to drive all the way to San Francisco and start living there and build a life in the gay utopia that is San Francisco, and takes place in the 90s, and it's about coming of age and discovering your sexuality and trying to build a life for yourself when you're a marginalized identity. The other book I wanted to talk about is called A Short Stay in Hell, and I think I got recommended to this book from one of the weird girlies of BookTok, like either Booksandlala or Katie Colson, I think. It's about this cool concept of what if after you die, you go to hell and you're given a challenge and you have to complete this challenge in order to progress to paradise. And the main character's challenge is to find a book in this massive library that describes his life, every single beat of it. But that is actually a very challenging task because this library has an enormous number of books, and a lot of them are just gibberish. So even finding a book that has one legible word is hard. And there's other people in the library also trying to find their book, and none of them have ever found it. The book progresses in the author, or I guess the main character, imagine if the author actually went through this. The main character slowly realizes, wait, this is actually impossible. Wait, I'm actually never going to have this happen to me. And it does a lot of commentary on time and life and what does it mean to be a human being. And I think it's beautiful, and I even teared up a little bit at the end. The next book is Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I've been a John Green fan since 2018. I know it's kind of late, but I'm a Gen Z person. I'm not a millennial, so I was not there for the craze of The Fault in Our Stars and all that jazz in 2014. So I joined the fandom a little bit late, and I actually like the books that people don't care about that much, like Turtles All the Way Down. And there was a movie based on this book. I actually watched the movie. I thought it was good, but I still preferred the book because of the internal monologue of the main character. I even like The Anthropocene Reviewed, and now he came out with the tuberculosis book, and I enjoyed it so much I even gifted it twice last year to 2 different people. Now, I am in STEM, so I have a lot of friends and people in STEM, and the people I gifted to are people in STEM, so I guess it makes sense why I gifted this book, but I think anyone can read this and get something out of it. Next, I read The Quiet Room, which is the sequel to Rabbits, which was one of my favorite books of 2021, which till this day is one of the best reading years I've ever had. That list is full of bangers I kind of want to reread. And this year I actually reread Rabbits to prepare for The Quiet Room. The Quiet Room had been out for a couple of years. I didn't know about it in the beginning, and then I added it to my TBR. It stayed there a little while. For some reason, I kind of felt inclined to reread Rabbits, and so I did. I did the audiobook this time. And Kay is voiced by a woman, which is so cool, playing into the whole non-binary thing. And The Quiet Room actually does not follow Kay. It follows another character that you meet in Rabbits, and also new characters, and also old characters. And I enjoyed it. Some people were disappointed by this. I thought it was cool, and I am excited to see if there's going to be more books in the Rabbit universe. I think these are just like pure fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then the last book, it's kind of, I guess, duology, but I enjoyed the first book more than the second, but technically I would recommend the whole story because it doesn't make sense to read the first one and not read the second one. And it's the Bloomtown duology, but specifically just book one because I didn't enjoy book two as much. Book one is, I guess, the beginning and middle of the relationship between the two characters that we follow. This is a lesbian historical fiction romance set in the 1850s, I think, in the southwest of America. I don't remember exactly where it's set, but I know it's in that area. This book does lesbian romance very well. A lot of lesbian romances suck. I have DNF'd numerous lesbian romances. But this book actually makes you care about the characters individually, and then it makes you care about the couple, which is where a lot of lesbian romances, in my opinion, fail, because they create these caricatures of lesbians or queer women, and they try so hard to make you care for the couple, but they can't even make you care for the characters as individuals that can stand on their own. But this book does that very well. And also, it's not just the romance, there's also other plot lines going on. It's a very well-rounded story. Now, the problem with this book, or the reason why it's not higher up on the list, is because after I read it, I didn't really think about it anymore. But that could also be because I read this in July, and then in August, my life turned upside down. And I've had numerous canon events ever since, because in August, I also moved for grad school. But before I moved, there were some complications about my living situation, the box in question. And then when I came here, there were other problems. I went through a lot last year, but now we're finally on the other side. We've started a new year. It's been going well so far, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. But yeah, I read this book right before the storm that was my life in 2025. And so maybe that's why I didn't think about it anymore. But I know a lot of people love this book, and I think if you love lesbian romance, you will love it too. So we're done with the honorable mentions. So now let's move on to the actual favorites. Number 10 is Leaving the Station. This is a lesbian, queer, YA novel coming of age about this character who is discovering they're non-binary, and they are also discovering that pre-med is not really right for them. They're a freshman in college, but they're thinking about dropping out, and they're going home for Thanksgiving. They go to Cornell, and their home is in Seattle, so they're taking the train actually from New York City to Seattle. The book is all about that journey from New York City to Seattle. It only takes place on a train, which is a very cool concept because it's like a confined space and you're limited to what you can do within that confined space. They also meet a girl there, and there's like a little bit of a romance, but they also meet other characters, and there's a lot of reflection and rumination about their life and their choices, and also backstory on their time at Cornell. So if you are a fan of like lesbian YA, not all lesbian YA is good, but this is one of the rare examples that I think is very good, I would highly recommend it. The next book on the list is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. I read my first Gillian Flynn back in 2020. It was Gone Girl. I didn't love it, and so I hadn't picked up another book by her in years. Until one day at work, I decided to listen to the audiobook of The Grown Up. And guess what, guys? I loved it to the point where now I am open to reading more Gillian Flynn. I know Sharp Objects is very beloved, and Dark Places is not as much, except BookSandlala loves it. And The Grown Up is a very short novella, and you can read it in 1 hour. And I actually don't remember the plot that well, but I just remember the feeling that it gave me. and I remember loving it and really liking the ending. Next, I have 2 books by the same author, and they're kind of part of this whole, not series, but companion books that this author is doing. And those books are Strange Figures in Strange Houses. I don't know where I would put, like, ranking wise each of them. I enjoyed both of them equally, I guess. Strange Figures is about these weird drawings certain characters do, and there's like 4 different stories that all connect together, but in the beginning of them you don't know how they connect. And then Strange Houses is one story, but it involves several houses that this person is trying to investigate because of their weird floor plan. They're both very cool, very unique books. I love translated fiction, especially Japanese translated fiction, and this author is actually like anonymous almost. Nobody knows who this person is, but they write these like very cool mystery thriller novels, and I know Strange Buildings is going to come out very soon. I'm very excited about that. So these were books I read in December actually, and most of these books that are in my favorites list were read in the first half of the year, and then I came to grad school and my reading dipped, and even the books I was reading I was not enjoying. But when I came home, these were one of the only books that I was actually enjoying and I was excited to read, so I'm very grateful for that. Next, I'm going to talk about Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. This book is a horror book that I almost DNF'd, but I'm very happy that I decided to stick with it and read a little bit more, because then I got hooked. I read this book all at the airport while I was waiting for my plane, and actually I did not end up flying that day because they just delayed and delayed and delayed my flight until they canceled it, and I was in DC for a grad school interview, and it was actually during the time when the accident happened with a helicopter. What a good time to be alive, right? And it's about this guy who's driving and he really needs to go to the bathroom, and he stops at this rest stop. He goes in the bathroom and then weird stuff starts happening, and it's so good. I love horror so much. This was the year that I was falling in love with horror, I feel like. Okay, so I have talked about all the 5 books that were in the bottom half of my favorites, and now we're getting to my juicy top 5 books of the year. These are all solid 5 stars that I would highly, highly, highly recommend. So, on number 5, we have Idlewild by James Blanky Thomas. This book is so good. I read the audiobook. I didn't really know what it was about. I almost, well, not almost DNF'd it. I was considering like, do I really want to read this? I'm so glad I stuck through. This book is about 2 best friends in high school who, one of them is a butch lesbian, the other one is a girl, for now, who's obsessed for some reason with gay men, and she doesn't understand why. And they meet on 9/11, and they go to this high school in New York where they don't have grades. It's like this special high school, and they're both in 11th grade when they meet, and they stay friends until the end of 12th grade. And this book follows their friendship during that time. And then there's also these moments in the book of present day. Several years later, they're both older and they don't talk to one another anymore, but you don't know why. And so you know that they're not friends anymore, but you're still curious about learning, okay, but what happened back in high school? So they're very nerdy. They're both part of like their theater group at school. They read a lot of fan fiction. They have this very, very intense young queer friendship that is the case for a lot of queer people when they're out in high school. I was not queer in high school, but I can imagine what it's like. As the book progresses, you're really compelled to flip the page, and it's going to become a movie very soon. I'm very excited because I think this book, or this movie, I guess, is going to be the next Bottoms, or at least the next Booksmart, because if they get the vibes right, it's gonna be a new gay classic. I'm so excited. Next, number 4, is Confessions by Kanai Minato. And this is another Japanese translated book. It's about this teacher who teaches 7th grade, I think. And she has a young daughter that's 4 years old, but one day her daughter dies. And the teacher knows that 2 students from her class killed her, and she's going to get revenge. And the way she gets revenge is crazy. And then you also see the aftermath of that revenge, and you see different perspectives of that story. So a lot of people kind of lose interest when they see the other perspectives, because the first perspective is the teacher. But I personally found all the perspectives very interesting, and I loved everything we got to learn. All the books I'm going to mention next, I actually have physical copies of, because even though I read these books from the library, I went to a queer book swap recently, and I found copies of them, and I was so happy. So next, I'm gonna talk about Several People Are Typing. This is actually not my favorite cover. There's another cover that I like more, but I don't care because I got to have a physical copy of this. I have a long history with this book. I started reading it in 2023, and I DNF'd it because I thought it was boring. Blasphemy. And then in 2025, I heard Raylene from Books Unbound mention this and say that she was enjoying it a lot. And so I was like, let's give it another try. Maybe now I'm 2 years older and wiser. So maybe I will enjoy this book. I actually don't need the laptop anymore. And guess what, guys? Not only did I love it, but I found out this book is queer, and I didn't know. The author is also trans, and I didn't know. Why isn't this advertised more? I don't know. But this book is queer, but you don't find out right away. It's something that happens later on in the book. It's very straight in the beginning. It's about this office in New York City, and a bunch of workers work there, obviously. And one of them, one day, gets stuck in Slack. If you've ever used Slack, I have, in college. I don't use it anymore. It's this kind of Discord type of space where people can chat and have different channels, and workplaces use it sometimes. Or, in my case, university clubs. And this person gets stuck in Slack, and they can't get out. And it's so funny. It also becomes queer later, which I love. And it's just very funny, and it's all told in fucking Slack messages. It's so good. Number 2. Now these books, they could both be number 1. I don't know. But I guess I just chose this to be my number 2. My number 2 is Exalted by Anna Dorn. I love Anna Dorn so much. She wrote my favorite book of 2024, which is Perfume and Pain, and it really spoke to me at the time because I had just gone through something, and the main character of that book also had gone through a similar thing, and I was like, this book came to me at the right time. And so I gave it 5 stars, and I had low expectations for this book, but damn, it was 5 stars. I read it on vacation. I read both of her books on vacation. They're great vacation reads, by the way. This book is about 2 characters, and there's 2 alternating POVs. And in a lot of books, there's one POV you like, and then one POV you dread. But it's not the case with this book, because both POVs are equally good. One of them is this middle-aged lesbian living in Riverside, California, and she's like very flirty and likes to like get a lot of women, even though she's like 45, 48. And then the other perspective is this astrologer in her 20s, and she has an account called Exalted on Instagram. It's very popular, and she reads a lot of people's astrology charts for money, but her business has not been the best recently, and she's kind of struggling for money. And she also meets this guy whose chart is perfect, and the book is her trying to track this guy down. You're thinking probably, what does this have to do with the old lady from the beginning? You're gonna find out the stories do intersect. But the thing is, I'm currently reading her new book, American Spirits, that hasn't come out yet, and I'm reading it on NetGalley, and I'm not liking it that much. So I guess she's not one of my favorite authors, but she has written 2 5-star books I really love, and I highly recommend this one if you're looking for a lesbian book that's very funny and has a great plot twist. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about is actually the second book I read in 2025. So I read my favorite book very early on in the year, and that book is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. This was the year I fell in love with horror. And this book is the scariest book I have ever read in my life. It kept me up at night. And I'm scared to read it again. Yes, I do recommend it to people, but not to myself. This book is about this lesbian couple who recently moved into this house in the middle of nowhere, Pacific Northwest. And one day when only one of them is at home, this family knocks on their door and says that they used to live here, and they have a lot of nostalgia and they really want to walk around and see their place because they miss it. And the main character is a little bit hesitant, but at the end of the day, she's a people pleaser, so she lets them in. And they don't leave. They won't leave. And chaos fucking ensues. I didn't think it was gonna scare me as much as it did, or thrill me and compel me. And I've reflected a lot about why is this the best book? And I've come to the conclusion that I really like books that make me experience things I've never experienced before while reading. I want the book to not just be a book, but also an experience. And this book was truly an experience, to the point when I finished the book, I threw it across the room. It's a lot about separation from your loved one, because a lot of this book is spent with the main character being separated or far away from her partner. And this is about a lesbian couple, and as a lesbian myself, the thought of being separated from your loved one, and I've never been in a relationship, but just the thought of it sounds soul crushing. And so this book was very torturous in that way. What do you mean the lesbians don't get to be together? Please. Maybe it's because the author is a man, but I think he does have a lesbian sibling, so that's why maybe the main characters are lesbians. But yeah, a man wrote it, and of course he was gonna torture the lesbians because everybody likes to torture the lesbians. But I loved it so much. I didn't want to give it 5 stars in the beginning because I was so angry at the book, but at the end I was like, you know what, this book gave me feelings that I've never felt before, so I have to give it credit where credit is due. Give it credit where credit is due. Now, I have read the book that he's going to publish in April, and I didn't like that. I thought it was not scary. This is fucking terrifying. So it's interesting that with both of these books, I read these and loved them, but then the next book that the author is going to publish this year, I didn't love. So I guess I'm hard to please, and not every author releases their magnum opus every year. So these were my favorite books of 2025. 2025 was not the best reading year. I read slightly more than 2023, but about the same books number-wise as 2024. I think 2026 is gonna see an even smaller number because I'm so busy, but I hope that during my vacation, especially in the summer, I can read more. Thank you for watching. I don't know if anybody watches these, not gonna lie.